everybody, today we're going to begin with the oral cavity. Just looking at the pig here itself, I did cut it out of the bag. I did wash off the fluid that it was submerged in, so I just put the pig underneath the sink and washed it off. And then I did empty the fluid down the drain and I threw the bag out there. And then you can store it in a Ziploc bag. Now, what I'm going to do here, you can see we've got the nostrils right here, looking at the side view right here. We've got the ears. These are known as the pinna or the auricles right there. You've got the eyes. So you're looking at the underside of the chin here in this video, and then this would be the neck region. You will see an opening in here into where they injected the dye for the pig there. That will allow the coloration of the blood vessels. So bluish color for veins and a pinkish color for arteries here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is kind of give what we call an extension of the oral cavity, a cut here on the side and here. So if you think about like cutting a slit at the corner of the mouth here, so what I'm going to do is you take your razor blade and just cut till you feel like you're getting into some bones, and then you can kind of cut almost to the ear there. And you want to do it on both sides here. Okay, and so this is where you're going to have to get some muscle strength in here. You can see the tongue. You want to put your thumb on top of the tongue here and your other thumb on top of the roof of the mouth there. And what you're going to do here is you're going to pull this open, and you're going to be hearing some sort of snap, crackle, and pop there. You may see some green discoloration. That is digestive material. And I'm just like using the palm of my hand. You want to open this up, and you do possibly want to hear a breaking of the jaw. That will give you a better view of the structure. There we go, that one little click there. Now, what we're looking at here, and like I said, I just have a little bit of digestive material. You can just wipe that away there. These are not on your list here, but you can see these ridges right here. This would represent what is the hard palate. Then it becomes smooth, and this is the soft palate. This area of the throat is known as your pharynx, but the important structure that we need to see here is this little U-shaped structure right here. That U-shaped structure right there, that is the epiglottis. So let me get a little bit better orientation there. This little U-shaped structure is an epiglottis. It's made up of elastic cartilage. That may have been where you've heard of it before when talking about elastic cartilage in A&P1. And that epiglottis covers over your trachea, which is your windpipe, when you've eaten food. And so food will go behind the trachea into what's called the esophagus, which we will see in the neck region there, okay? All right, so that is our structures there for the oral cavity. Now, what I'm gonna do now is close up the mouth. I'm actually just gonna take a rubber band and just sort of, so it doesn't get in the way, and sort of keeps it nice and closed there. Now what I'm going to do, you wanna keep that rubber band as far close to the chin as possible there. And let me just get this on a little bit better there. All right, it's being tricky for me here. Okay, I think we're just gonna leave it there. It's being a little funky with me. Okay, there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make a slit. If you can imagine, when you palpate, you're palpating the sternum. If you guys remember your bony prominence at the top of your rib cage right there, that is the sternum. The top part was the manubrium. So I'm sort of feeling the manubrium, and then it drops off into soft tissue. So what I'm going to do is either take your razor blade and you slightly score. Don't saw into it, but you see how I'm scoring the skin right here? And then I'm going to go across the chest cavity here. And then if you can imagine the angles of the mandible right here, and scoring across through there. And so what you want to do is you want to find, looks like I didn't get all the way through here. You want to find where these two sort of meet up. See how they meet up with the corner right there? And what you can do is you can grab some tweezers, okay? And you are going to take this skin off. So you don't have to keep the skin. You're going to remove the skin here. And the skin is about a 1/4 inch thick there. It's about a 1/4 inch thick there. And you're going to want to remove the skin over that neck region here. And be careful when you're sort of de-skinning the pig. You don't want to cut any major vessels, so you want to keep very superficial. We will be using those vessels for later on. And be careful if you're cutting towards your hand there. Okay, now, eventually you're going to deskin the entire chest, so if you want to kind of just clean it up just to give yourself a little bit wider view here. See how you're getting into some blood vessels right there? Don't worry, we're going to be focusing on the main ones, but you want to be careful as much as possible right in this armpit area here. Okay. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we have some muscle tissue here. And muscle tissue, if you remember, it's very striated. So I'm just going to kind of damage this muscle tissue a little bit so you can see the lines. You can see the fascicles in there. You can see the, let me zoom in for you guys here. You can see the fascicles right here of that muscle tissue. And so this is where you're going to have to sort of, let me zoom back out just a tad bit. Right in this area of the neck region, you can feel this ball-like structure. That is thyroid cartilage, but the whole organ is called the larynx. And so what we're going to do is gradually remove this muscle tissue, almost layer by layer. And see how I just kind of, mine's a little bit darker, but I noticed that there's another tissue underneath it. And this tissue you do not want to remove, okay? And this tissue below, it has sort of a marbled-like appearance. I'm going to zoom in. It's very important that you don't cut that one. That is a gland there. That is part of our thymus gland. So you can see, I would say we're about 1/4 of an inch thick of muscle on top of that. And mine was somewhat, oh, let me zoom back out here. Sorry about this, guys. Hold on one second. Let me get that from shaking. Okay, so my muscle tissue was a little bit different in color, which kind of helped me a little bit. And so what I'm going to do, since we do not need to know the muscles here, I'm going to remove that muscle tissue away. And then we would have, these are called your strap muscles. These are muscles that sort of help with the neck region here. And so I'm going to remove that muscle here on this side too as well. Okay, now what we have here, we can see this ball-like structure here. You can see this, I'm kind of pushing it aside. It's very hard, okay? It's a cartilage, it's a hyaline cartilage. And then we do have another bit of muscle here. You can see it's a little bit darker than the glandular tissue. And so I'm just gonna pull on this little bit of muscle tissue. And sometimes when you have a smaller pig, it gets a little tight in here. Now, as we get towards the manubrium, which is right here, we need to be very careful with this muscle because there's a gland. I'm literally peeling it off piece by piece. There is a gland that is about the size of an eraser head. And you guys can see it right now, okay? That is your thyroid gland. It's usually a little bit darker in color, okay? This is different from the gland I just mentioned before that had that marbled-like appearance. This is the thymus gland. All right, this is muscle tissue off to the side here. You can see that if I look at this right here, you can see the striations here. You can see the striations in that right there. So I'm going to remove that one. Careful of these blood vessels right there too as well. Okay, so what we have here this ball structure right here, this is the larynx, okay? It has our vocal apparatuses deep into it. And I'm just removing some connective tissue right here. And you can start to see when I just remove this connective tissue like a film over it, you get a much clearer view of these rings. And these rings right here, these rings are hyaline cartilaginous rings, which are what keep the trachea. This is what makes up the trachea here. So you can see these hyaline cartilaginous rings, much easier felt. You can feel it with your finger there. So that makes up the trachea. So you can see we've got this ball-like structure. This is your larynx. We then have your trachea right here. Now we have our glands here. You have your thyroid gland, which remember was just like the eraser head. And then we have the thymus gland right here, which had that marbled-like appearance right here. So there's the thymus gland. And be careful of these blood vessels in here. These little ones, I don't care about these, but these big ones, let's see, I don't even know how to, 1/4 of an inch thick maybe. Everything's a 1/4 of an inch thick, right? All right, so you got your thymus gland. It makes a U shape around here, almost like a necklace. And so it flanks the side of the trachea. So let's review these again. You have your larynx, you have your trachea, you have your thymus, and you have your thyroid. Now, if you pretty much gotten this loosey-goosey in here, you should be able to pick it up and just kind of look for a soft tissue tube. It's usually a little bit darker in color. And this tube right here it does not have any hyaline cartilaginous rings. I'm just kind of sticking my probe in between there. And that is your esophagus. That is your esophagus. Now we're going to be able to see the esophagus in 2 places. Your esophagus is what brings food down to your stomach. So we're also going to see it in the chest cavity too as well. So the esophagus is one of those places where we can tag it twice. All right, so now we have your larynx. The rib tube is your trachea. The smooth tube behind it is your esophagus. You have the thymus gland here and here. And then the one that's like the size of the eraser head, that is your thyroid gland. So just kind of looking at where we're at. Larynx, trachea, thymus, thyroid, and then esophagus. Now be careful of some blood vessels right behind this thymus here. We'll be looking at these later, called the common carotid artery. I'll just kind of point them out here. It's called the common carotid artery. Where are you at? The common carotid artery, and then the internal jugular vein. So we'll take a look at those later. Okay. All right, so that is the neck region. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to deskin the chest, okay? I'm going to deskin the chest. You can feel the ribs where they end. So they're going to kind of go, they're going to go on an angle here. If you follow this along, sorry, I get this shaking here. They've got an angle here. They come up. Here's about the sternum, and you can see the rib cage going down here. So I'm going to remove all the skin over this area, and then we'll start the next video with the chest area.